I'm going to start off by just sort of thinking about a raptor skull. And when I am drawing a raptor skull, I'm going to start off just with a little bit of a light circle here. The beak is going to be coming out from that tip, and on different raptors, the length of the beak here is going to be very, very, very different. And I'm going to make this skull go back a little bit more. So a little falcon. Falcons have small beaks. Eagles have big beaks. Hawks have beaks that are somewhere in between. And if I have, so I'm not going to just throw a generic beak size on whatever bird I'm drawing. Again, small beak is going to be good for, say, an accipiter, so a sharp-shinned hawk, a Cooper's hawk, a little falcon. But what people will tend to do is, they're drawing their raptor. It's sitting there on a fence post, or here it is on a branch. Here is my raptor. So there's my general proportions, kind of angular, and things are looking good so far. But what tends to happen is any part of a subject that looks really cool, your brain wants to draw that bigger than it actually is. And so if there's your little hawk, you get to the beak and you think, oh my gosh, look at that beak. And you pull up your binoculars and you go, wow, it's got this really big hook in it. And that's so cool. I want to draw that. And so people do that. And so what we do is we end up turning our raptor into a toucanette. And that's the death of the raptor drawing. And then we do the same thing on the claws. We'll just put in these, I've got talons for days. So what you're going to want to do is really on that raptor is pay attention to how big that beak really is on your critter, and go for that. I'll show you a little trick that the bird artist, the master bird artist Keith Hansen of Bolinas does. He'll often, when he's drawing a bird, a raptor with a little beak, let's say he's got a little falcon drawing going, he just puts in a little circle, maybe it's an accipiter, a little circle right there, just to kind of block in. This is roughly the size of the beak. And that cute little beak, there's our raptor beak. And you've got, for your small raptor, that's going to be perfectly adequate. So that little circle, just that kind of, so he's not dropping in any detail. Once you kind of get lost on drawing that hook, you're going to want to make it big. And I actually exaggerated it here. Oh, and that bears note too. Check this out. When birds are in captivity, they grow longer hooks on the tips of their beak because they're not wearing off on things. So if you're drawing your raptor from photographic reference, and your photographic reference is of a bird in captivity, it's going to have this huge spike down here. You put that in on your wild bird drawing, and somebody who knows birds will be like, oh, you've been to the zoo. That's nice. All right, but let's drop back to this guy. So if I'm just looking at the skull of this, the raptors have a very, very large eye socket, very, very large eye cavity. There's a big eye socket. And there is a nose area. In here, there's a little nostril off in this area. And the tip of the bird's bill is often covered with hard keratin. So the dark part will be up here. Another cool thing that raptors have, I should say most raptors have, is a little bony shelf that comes out right in here, and it covers up The eye is actually going to be emerging below this thing. And if you've ever looked at a hawk photograph or a hawk up close, you're going to see that there's this sort of shadow underneath the eye. That is cast by this bony projection that will be above where the eye is going to emerge on where you're going to see the eye on the side of the head. So we're going to add in this little bony prominence here. That's going to come in handy a little bit later on. You're going to see on a lot of these raptor drawings, what we're going to end up doing is just sort of adding in a little bit of shadow right there, and it's going to make them look kind of cool and raptor-y. And that's where that's coming from. It's actually an anatomical thing. So when you're dropping in that shadow, that's relating to that little bar above the eye, right in there. So now I want to put some feathers on it. And what I'm going to do is just start with a typical hawk face. And I'm going to sort of draw the bill in as I would see it on a hawk in the field. And so I'm going to put in a little ball for my head. I'm going to put in a cone, actually not a cone, sort of this is going to be more flattened, kind of coming out. And at the tip of that, I'm going to curve it down. So the beak is going to come out straight, and then we're going to have our curve down. It's a little bit of a tooth that comes out. The suture of its mouth comes back straight and fairly far into the head of the bird. This line here, the line of the gape, is going to be longer also on different types of hawks. So for instance, I think a ferruginous hawk, the suture of the mouth goes back well behind to the back of the eye, and other hawks it's not as far. So on most hawks, you're not going to really be able to see how far back that goes, so you're not really worrying about it, but you get up close enough, that's something that you can note. The lower bill is narrower and hooks up towards the tip. Right. Now, we're going to put some feathers on it. I'm going to put some skin here around the corner of the mouth. And I am going to bring my feathers in a scoop, a curving scoop up here into the lower part of the bill. So my bird's feathers are going to be occupying that area up in there. So a little scoop into the lower part of the bill. And if you were here for the previous workshop where we were looking at songbirds, remember those feathers that came up under the chin? We're going to have exactly the same thing going on with these hawks. So then I'm going to have some chin feathers coming up here. And so I can make that look a little bit fluffy, but I'm pressing a little bit hard with my pencil and flicking up like that. So there is the top part of my bill. And now I'm going to put in the front part of the bill here. There is a nostril that is going to, actually first I'm going to sort of block in, I've got sort of the front dark part in here. This area back here is going to have my nostril in it. So the bird has a nostril, and that nostril sits on an area of fleshy tissue, the nares, I guess they call it the cere. I think that's, I'm not sure on how to spell that, C-E-R-E or something like that in in hawks. So here's this area. This area can often be brightly colored. It can be yellow, brightly colored in a bunch of birds. So if I were to be putting in color with this, I have this business up here that can be yellow, then coming out here around the corner of the mouth, and then that often kind of tucks around there. So this back part is yellow. Now I'm going to be getting into my eye placement. Now this one here, I'm going pretty far back. You want to look on the whatever kind of raptor that you're drawing. Where does the corner of the mouth come relative to the eye? With a red-tailed hawk, it'll be about in the middle of that. I wish I made this a little bit shorter, maybe ending in here. So from the side, the eye is essentially round, but very often you're going to see from just a slight kind of angle of the head, you're going to get this angry bird's look because of that brow right above the bird's head. And that zone actually comes all the way out into here. So that casts a shadow. That casts a shadow across this eye, back like that. And that's that thing that makes the raptor just look fierce. There's our fierce raptor. And this kind of thing has a neat function. You imagine you're out looking for rabbits all day without sunglasses on. This is going to protect your eyes from the glare of the sun. So it's like a little visor that sticks out. I'm going to put a little evidence of a little ring of tissue around the eye here. And then the last thing I really want to pay attention to is this zone right in here. Now that zone is very thinly feathered, and there are some tiny bristle-like feathers that are going to kind of come out and around in this area here. So sometimes you get a few little bristly feathers in that zone right there. Coming back here on my raptor head, and there we go. So principles of, I want that head to be a little bit thicker. So principles of this, I haven't overdone it on my beak, right? I'm thinking about my eye in relationship to the front of the beak. And again, this shadow here makes things look really, really hawky. So on this little hawk doodle up here, if I just have an eye in the side of the head, it looks a little bit like, you know, I'm a parrot, right? It looks very parrotish. But the minute I do this, right, angry parrot. Angry parrot is our raptor. And that does a lot to help with our bird drawing. Let me, I'm going to do this also from the side and a 3/4 view. But let me first take a look at, from the front and the 3/4 view. Let's first just take a look at a front view with one of these guys. And where do I want to do that? I'm going to do that right here on my paper. All right. So from a front view, remember my guidelines are the crosshairs. Those crosshairs help me get my beak and all my other bits in smoothly and nicely. This part, the sear, is going to make a larger, thicker part up here above the line. So I'm going to have my sear sticking up here. And that actually has, on the sides of that, if you're close enough, that's where the nostrils will be in on either side of this line. My center part of the beak is coming down from that. And if I have light coming from this side, I'm going to put just a little bit of shadow in, especially on that side of the beak. And see how this thicker, you've got this thicker part right up in here. This part is a little bit broader. So I can actually broaden this part out here. Doesn't that kind of looks like a little bird there, like a, I don't know, some sort of ibis. But it's not going to look like an ibis for very much longer, because from here I'm going out with the corners of my mouth. And to put my eyes in with my angry bird face, I'm coming in and then tucking down towards the beak. My eye sits underneath this. Oh, angry bird, right? So here's my little angry face. I come down here. I think this eye is a little bit too high, but I'll just let that go for now. Sometimes birds, you'll see a little bit of a peak in the head in there, but then somewhere in here next to the eyes, the head actually widens out to raptor cheeks. But for now, let's just notice the way that, look at this line here. I have my eye coming down, up over the top of the beak and up here. This is going to be really, this little swoop in there is going to be really important in my 3/4 view drawing. Underneath the throat here, I'm going to put in a little bit of an oval, and that's where kind of throat feathers would be. Coming around. Angry bird. And lastly, we're going to take this bird, and this is the view that I think is really the most practical and important. It's going to be looking at the 3/4 view on this raptor. So again, the 3/4 view is, it's partway between just looking dead on the bird and the side view. So on this, here's my start, all right? And my bird is going to be looking in this direction. So that means my beak here is going to be attaching up here in this zone. This little scoop up here is going to be coming there. And I have my eye, it's going to sit on this line. I want to make sure I've got enough space between the where my beak is going to be coming out and my eye for those cool little bristly zones in there. So I'm going to leave room for that. So just sort of put a little ball in there. And check this out. I had a longer, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw this, but a little bit shorter. So I won't go as far out to here and as far out to the tip. So that first part is going to be here, second part to there. So the whole beak gets shortened. And this front part of it is going to be where that nostril is. And I want to think of this part wrapping around. So I'm going to curve this line here. That's going to curve around. This is going to curve around. My beak is going to come up. And back to the corner of my mouth. My lower beak is going to also just sort of be shortened in there. There's my angry bird eyebrow and my eye. This part will be in shade. Now, so as you're thinking about these, look at this little line here on the beak. You want to, remember we talked about cross contour lines and cross contour lines? So if I'm doing that out here, this is what I'm visualizing. I'm visualizing the line coming straight down the outside edge here, cross contour lines coming around, doing that. Cross contour lines coming in there like that. Now here's the fun part. Remember this ridge? There's a big ridge on this side. So this is something you often see that's really cool. You see kind of this, either this will be tucking back in there because you're seeing the ridge, or you'll just sort of see the sort of a prominent brow just sort of sticking out on this side. But that gets this side of the head out. And if before there was a lot of head going back here, on this drawing, because part of that head is turned away from you, you're not going to see as much. See, doesn't this angle here is subtle, and this scoop up into it. So you've got this scoop up into here, and sometimes that's even more pronounced. You might have, I want that to be kind of in your face. That's a little bit too harsh. But you can't erase with your Prismacolor pencils very well, so maybe a little. All right. These throat feathers. And there is and if you're putting a highlight in the eye, don't place the highlight in the shadow zone. If you are going to have a highlight in the eye, it could be somewhere down here, but not in the area that is actually in shadow, because it's in shadow. All right. So there is our 3/4 view. Raptor. All right. Where is my get a little bit of watercolor on the side of this bird's face.
Jack, could you position the drawing a little bit
Oh,
higher so you can see the throat
a little
area?
higher.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah, well, this watercolor didn't quite come out the way that I had planned in my head, but that's sometimes what happens when you do live drawing. Yeah, I'm just adding a little hint of, give this guy a little bit of a whiter, paler throat. And for the beak, I want there to be a highlight somewhere in this area where the sun is hitting the top of that thing. Also, often there's a paler area near the base of the beak, and the outer part is darker. So I'm going to try to get a little hint of some of those effects. Put a little bit of that sort of kind of a blue-gray into those areas, and if I want it to look a little bit more shiny, I'm going to have a little bit of a higher contrast right in there. All right, so 3/4 view raptor head. And before I move on to all things ducky, let's just sort of turn to our studio audience, find out, is there anybody out there that has a question specifically about some aspect of these raptor heads? So you can drop that into the question comment area. Melinda, do you see any?
No, but actually, I do have a question that might be helpful. You put a little eye sparkle in the raptor. Did you use, was that a gel pen?
Yes, that was a gel pen that's dying. There it is, a little bit better. Yeah, that is a, this one is the jelly roll. My favorite is the Signo. And there's a little bit of discussion about that pen on the Nature Journal Club. I think that's my 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 uh, my gel pen of choice, but it just this happened to be within reach, so that's why I grabbed this guy. That's right. So the nice thing about a gel pen is that when they're not out of ink, you can draw white lines on a dark surface. Let me zoom in a little bit. Actually, first, if I can see if we can revive this guy.
Jack, sometimes you use a white pencil. When do you recommend pencil over the gel pen?
Gel pen gives you a, let's see, this guy is not focused. Where's the button to focus? You will focus now. It thinks it's focused. So with the gel pen, you can get a tighter, see, I'll put just a little bit of white reflection on that. You get a fine, precise line. The white pencil will give you more of a, you can have more of a pale line, but it is so that. But it's this thing can kind of end up looking harsh, and sometimes I want that. So if I want more of a harsh highlight in the eye, I can do that easily with this pen. With the white pencil, it's less so. If I tap it lightly, see, I now have some on my finger. I can make that a little bit lighter. So you'll sometimes when I'm drawing with this, I will, put some stuff in, and if that feels just a little bit too harsh, I just go tap, and then I get some of that on my fingertip. And the other thing that's nice about it is that it's water soluble, and some people see that as a problem with it. I actually look at it as a feature. If I don't like those lines, I can come by and stroke them back out, and they're gone.
Jack, could you zoom in on the side view? Someone is requesting taking a look at the side view. And there is a comment here from Bonnie Baskin saying that she'd like to say it's been very helpful to hear you accept things that don't go as planned. It's very freeing. Thank you.
Yeah, there's going to be tons of those moments, and the more I get wrapped around the axle about those, and you get in there, erase. This is really one of these sort of perfect is the enemy of the good lands, and if I struggle too much to just try to make it perfect, I'm not going to have as much fun. There's a certain point where you're good enough, and if you're doing a scientific illustration where you really want people to know that the gape goes out, as far as I've got it here, that would actually be appropriate for a ferruginous hawk. Red-tailed hawk would be about in here. And you can get in there with whiteout or whatever erasing medium you have and kind of rework these things. But I'd say in most cases, life is too short. Should we do some ducks?
Yeah, right. Actually, one last question. Where are the corners of the mouth on the front view?
Let's go there. So it depends again on the species. So for a red-tailed hawk, they're going to be coming down to about here, right? For a ferruginous hawk, they're going to be out here. But very often, that suture of the mouth can be harder to see. So you might have something, to sort of start to suggest a line that is going out there. you may not, on a little sketch, you may not have the ability to kind of get in there and put in all of those details. It might be really kind of hidden in the face of the bird. Right. So just because I know that something is in there, like this guy's feeling, I kind of like the feeling of the face, although I might have overdone it with that sort of central, like this will be a bird in the zoo, right? It's all happening at the zoo. And they're not trimming the tip of that beak, so it's really, really long in here. But that little detail, that detail aside, I actually like this better. Oh, the pencil here, this is a Prismacolor Premier pencil, and it is the indigo blue color. Just kind of, it's cool because you can draw with it and kind of get these dark lines, but it's blue, and that's fun. So let's see here. Watch this. If I come in here and I draw in all this detail, like I know that you're going to have an eye that comes like this, an eye like this, and I want there to be a little ring around it and a ring around that. And this part is coming up here, and there's a nostril, and there's a nostril, and then there's a wider part here, and then this, you know, it kind of turns more into a diagram of all the things that I think should be here. Mm-hmm. And I don't like this effect as much. I really prefer it when I've got just a little suggestion of that. So, but if you've got, you know, some great big, you know, in your face, go ahead and draw it. But you're going to find that from a lot of kind of more distant ones, it was better when it was suggested. And so just let yourself kind of go with that. Ready for some ducks? I'm ready for some ducks. Let's do some ducks. Special thanks to Amelia and Carolyn for letting me use their drawing pad. All right. Now, so here's my duckbill. And my duckbill, its eye is way back up in here. And look at this, the suture of its mouth is down in here, and its eyes all the way right up in there. So the idea here is that if this business end of the duck is down in the plants nibbling around, this part up here, you're not getting mud in your eye. And that's a really, really good deal. So the eye placement for duckness is not going to be your standard thing. And we're going to do duckness from side and front and 3/4. All right. So here we go. It's going to start the same way. Remember before we put that line right through the middle here for where the beak and the eye go? Not so on the duckness. For the duckness, what I'm going to do is that line comes out. I'm going to back up here. Oh, wrong way. All right. So that line's going to come out from the bottom of this. Now, my beak is going to go from somewhere in this area. It's going to come and then down out here. Different species of ducks are going to have different size bills and different angles of slope in the forehead. Some ducks will do this. Some ducks, like a canvas back, it's a ski slope right in there. So this forehead angle is going to be different. I'm going to do a mallard here, and so I'm going to have a slight turn up here, slight angle, slight little obtuse angle here. And the way the beak attaches into the head here is interesting. There's a little zone of feathers that's going to come down on the forehead in the middle, and then the beak is going to stick up on the side and curve down around the face of the bird, and then tuck back in a little here. So it's going to tuck back in. The lower beak has a slight curve to it. And what that does is we're going to give our duck a little bit of a duck smile. So this line is going to come down, out, and I'm going to change, there's an angle change in here. On the top here, I'm going to come out here and, oh, I'm way off. Sorry about that, everybody. And there's a little, what's called a nail, a little tab here at the tip of the duck's bill. I'm going to see a little bit of the underside of the lower bill here, disappearing under the top. And these guys also have a nostril. You'll see that in the side. If I want to, I can put a little bit of a suggestion of a little lip right there. There's a sort of change, little bump right when you get to the edge. Let me zoom in on that. Now, the feathers on the underside here are going to come out a little bit under our bill here and back. So a lot of people, the problem that they get with a duck head, wrong way. Some people with the duck head will get this sort of thing going on, that, you know, here's the duck head and here's a duck bill, and then the neck is going to come down right from where that duck bill ends. That's not going to look right. You actually need some duck throat. I'm going to come around to the back of the head and then down. Eye placement is really important with these ducks. The ducks have a big puffy cheek right in this area, a little duck cheek, which we will see again when we get to these guys from the front. And the duck eye sits on top of this cheek. Actually, I'm going to make this a little bit further back. Put a little bit of a edge around that eye. So if there's a shadow in here, it's going to be back in here. Here on the top of this cheek. And maybe in the bottom of this cheek. And that makes that cheek kind of puff out a little bit more. depending on what species you are, you're going to have more of a forehead, less of a forehead, straighter bill, curver bill, longer bill, bigger bill, shorter bill, all those sort of things. So you want to kind of go and look at your specific duck species for that. Also, steeper forehead, less steep forehead. All those are sorts of things that we can change from duck to duck. But for our basic duck here, we're good to go. If I were to draw this same duck, but from a front view, I'm going to get a different situation. So I'm drawing a little, here's my duck. What I like to think about is the ducks have this part up here in the head, which is sticking up a little bit too high. That's better. You don't need all that head. This zone up here is skinnier than the cheeks. So from the duck, from the front view, what you have is this area in the top that comes down to a little cone, and that's going to fit right in there in the top of the beak. And the eyes are going to be up here on the sides of that. Now here's my duck cheek. Here's my other duck cheek. And the bill is going to be coming down in the middle of this. So for my duck bill here, I'm going to come down and out a little bit and then down towards the viewer. Depending on how tilted the duck's head is, will mean how far down the beak is going to be pointing down this way. If you end up seeing a lot of beak, then you're looking at the top of the head and you need more back of the head. I'm going to stop this about in here. And I'm going to put in that little nail. So that this doesn't look just like a flat platform, I'm going to give you a little bit of a shadow in this zone here. But I'd probably best if I don't bring that shadow all the way to the center line, because I want there to be a center area that might even get more highlight. So a little bit of a shadow on the side there. And this guy gets some color. Here's the disadvantage of using the indigo pencil, is that when you go over blue pencil, you get that kind of green color, but maybe that's not that bad. Oh, wet paint. Well, maybe since it's wet, I can come in here. Let's see if I can get a thirsty brush, so no paint on my brush, and just come up here and make, oh, escaping little thing there. Yeah, I like having that kind of a little, but I don't like that. Oh well. Could have avoided that by giving this thing more time to dry in between kind of painting moments, but it was not to be. Quack. There's some duck, but then there is the 3/4 duck. The 3/4 duck is a really cool thing. And again, these 3/4 views, you will see them all the time. That is going to be, you actually see them more often than the front or the straight side view. Because just sort of imagine a 360-degree circle. If you just have front and side, you have 3 degrees of that covered. But if you have all of those 3/4 views that you feel more comfortable with, then you've got a lot, you'll be seeing that angle again and again and again and again and again and again. So let's draw a 3/4 view of the duck here. All right. I'm going to draw again a little circle, and I love these contour lines that sort of say like here's the center of my duck. It's going to be looking this direction. All right. So that's the center line coming down. That means that little scoop up at the top of the beak, that is going to be in here. So there's that scoop that's going to be right in the middle of the forehead of the duck. And I'm coming down and out. I have, if this is now the center line of my duck bill, this side of the duck bill, I'm not going to see as much of because it's wrapping around the other side. So this, we want to make things symmetrical in our head. Our brain says, make this size the same as this size. No, 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 no. Because that's what we know it is. But what we're actually seeing from this angle is what is just here on this is a bigger line on this side of the duck. Think of things being wrapped around either side. And here, following this little line down, that's where my little tab at the tip of the beak goes. And doesn't that do a lot for just sort of saying like this is the middle of the beak right in there. The side that is close to you gets more detail. Now, this guy's eye line, we're going to come up here. Hi, ducky eye. Now, without any other confusing paint in here, let's see if I take that thirsty brush and can lift out, yeah, just a little bit of paint right in there. Three-quarter view duck. So that this little scoop, I think, really helps. And sometimes you can even see part of duck face down on that side of it as well. So there we have fronts, sides, three-quarter views of these kind of waterfall fowl, and some ideas on how to handle that beak. Of course, you can do things like take this beak and now make it point towards you more, point towards you less. This guy can look up, look down. Any of these could look up and down in different directions. But the same basic principles would be applying to drawing those beaks in different situations. When in doubt, just close one eye and look at the beak as a shape. As a shape. If you look at the beak and say from this angle, what I'm seeing is something more like that. Then, you know, that's the same duck with its head tilted up more. There's a wonderful kind of, now here's, I don't know if I want to do this to you guys, but go around online and start looking at photographs of mallard duck beaks, but think of them as the face of a dog. Can you see the dog face with the nose and the eyes and the ears? I'm sorry to do that to you. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And you start looking around on photographs and you're like, wow, ducks are wearing dog masks. That's so cool. You've got the dog mask. So yeah, you can look for ducks wearing dog masks. Try just with some photographs and you'll be really surprised. Look for mallard duck bills. And the dog mask thing is really kind of fun to look for.